Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 224 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to start working on our Tier 5 modules build. Enjoy! Right now, these setups are designed to make about 1 per second, and that's kind of what we've been planning on for this build as well. So we'll probably want to do something similar. We'll probably want to look at how things are done elsewhere. Although, we'll probably want to do it a little differently because here we made the different module boards, like the yellow ones, and got injected and all the other colors. And then they got pulled off to do research. But now, that's not necessarily the case. The logic boards only go into the various colored ones. And then these ones only go into modules 3, 4, and 5. So it means we don't have to bust them like we did with these other ones. We can just go straight into making the circuit boards, making the regular boards, and then injecting them into the modules, which it would be like Tier 3, Tier 4, Tier 5, and then have stuff in the middle. And then somewhere nearby, the rest of the components will be made, so the concept is kind of similar, but the shape will be different. Let's just go down the line for making the speed module 5s for now. And we want 1 per second. The speed modules. And in there go speed module 4s. Which also get their speed modules. And it's not quite 1-to-1 ratio, but it's almost to that point where we might want to just do that to make this easier. And then number 3. Oops, we want to make sure we use the right ones. So you can see how the size of the machines they get slower and slower. But it would make life a lot easier if they just directly inserted into each other. So knowing that, as long as these machines are faster than those ones, it should be fine. There we go. If we did this, they should all feed into each other, and then they would have these requirements we'd have to get in there. But from there, we would need the speed logic boards, which we made, and you see how, since they all kind of require a lot of the same components, we want to do all this right next to each other to avoid any logistics issues. So these ones can use productivities, which dramatically slows them down. But worth it because it's using a lot of the high value things. And then these logic boards, which also get productivities. It would be great if some kind of direct insertion could be possible. But we'll have to see. Regardless, we'd want all productivity modules in there. And that's all of this. And then we would want to be making all of the components that go into it. So we would need a bunch of solder. Although not difficult to make. The integrated electronics, which we might be able to copy from our other setups. Productivity is at every step of the way. Let's see, let's make the transistors. We want to break this down to its initial components. Then we need module contacts. Of course, they need to be decoiled. Let's see, let's pull this out and make the various items inside this line if possible. Solder. And then these plates. We want to get all these components down to their base level that is in the logistics system. And it seems like we've done it. All of this stuff would be shipped. We'd want to redo this setup at least 3 times, one for each of the basic modules of speed, efficiency, and productivity, and then we'd want to do a few more. Probably one for pollution cleaning, and one for agricultural, which might be slightly different. The pollution cleaning would actually basically be the same. It would just use the harmonic crystal shards instead. So we'd have 4 setups that are the same. And then the 5th one is actually very straightforward, and it doesn't use previous tier modules, as you can see here. So we might be able to pull out the old one that's in there and put this one in its place. Basically, all we need to do is take efficiency and productivity and solder them together, and boom, we have agricultural modules. And this is basically how all of the combined modules work, but they seem really powerful where you combine 2 different modules and then they have no downside at all, so that's why I'm not using them. But agricultural makes sense because it's productivity for farms. So that's easy. So basically we would need to do 4 setups here, and that is an even number, so it's possible we might be able to have these next to each other feeding into themselves, but based on the numbers that we're dealing with here, it's kind of hard to say. Like, potentially having module contacts in the middle of 2 sets of machines might work. And I think we kind of already did that to an extent over here, where, yeah, we have the module contacts in the middle and then they're being fed to the left and to the right. So we might be able to do something like that. Probably couldn't do the same for these components because you see the number is close to a red belt for each of these. So those would have to be dedicated to their type of module. But the contacts, since it's less than a yellow belt, we could potentially do 2 of them in the middle and feed them to 2 separate sides. And then all of this other random stuff, like solder would have to be done unique to this because of the quantity. But I think we have an idea here. I don't know if we necessarily want to copy old setups. Probably not, because we have faster machines, better pulls. None of these even have any productivity modules or anything in there, which I guess we could potentially upgrade all of that. Let's assume module contacts will be in the middle of 2 different lines. So we'll want to make this twice as big as it is here. And it would work well to be twice as big because we'd still need the same number of feeding machines. So that's actually kind of amazing that you can make all these contacts with just 2 plate choppers. Let's see, let's get started over here. So we potentially want this to be fairly narrow because we have this much space to use, so we might as well try to use it as much as possible. Since we have a known limited amount of space, we want to make whatever we build fit in there. So we can do 3 in a row. I guess we would need about 18 on each side, where 1 belt of supplies comes in and a red belt goes out. Probably want it to go, I guess, up in this situation. This would also be up because the bus would be beneath us. And that's basically all there'd be to it. We would just need to make 36 of these. So there's 12. 24. And 36. So now the question is, does all this fit? It would be like this. And... oh man. That is cutting it close. Well, it could basically go up to here. Man, I really want to use it, even if it's slightly too big. Because it just barely fits. I guess we potentially could just do it down here, too. It doesn't quite fit there, but it would everywhere else. It is an inefficient use of the bus just to use all these things on the bottom. But they fit better. Could also potentially just remove some of the productivity modules to make it fit too. Because actually that makes too many. So is this number wrong? No, it's 36. Or I guess some of them don't have productivities in them yet. Okay, what do we have here? Pretty much exactly 20. So if we remove 1 row, we would not have enough. Well, another thing we can do is just get rid of these power poles that are in the middle. and smash all the machines together. So how big would this be? Oh, that's better. It certainly fits in there now, and we have enough room for moving belts around. And we can also use power poles in the middle here. Last thing we kind of need are the plate choppers. One for copper, one for silver, and then the input can kind of come in there. Then they can drop off there, pick up from here. That ought to work. Let's get these power poles in here. We can offset them to look kind of nice. That is the setup. It should still fit. It does. Okay. And then when this got up here, it would split to the left, into the right for the different types of modules. Let's just do speed modules here. Well, from the left side of the module will probably come the logic boards and speed logic boards. So on the right side, we should probably do the electronics and transistors and also have this belt kind of up here. So we have a little space we can use right here for this. These two are actually fairly similar. Both use plastic and both use silicon. So it's possible we might be able to reuse some components, but it might be more trouble than it's worth. But I would like to try to combine them if possible. It would probably make it cleaner. Well, it looks like integrated electronics is the bigger one. So let's do that. And we've already done this before. So could we reuse this? I guess the question is, should we reuse this? We probably could make this a lot more compact than this ended up being. I'll just grab it for now. Place it in here. We just get rid of all this stuff in the middle for now. And kind of have the pipes go down in there. And potentially we can have our two inputs. It would be probably the silicon wafers on one belt, plastic and wire on the other. Then we can use some distance changing inserters here. Let's get a thing there so we can see. One would go that way and inject in. This other one would go from the short and then inject in. Let's copy this a bunch of times. Set right there will save us a square. And then on this side, all we need to do is do the output. So that should save quite a bit of space. And we'll have to have power pull on each side, but it'll reach. And I think that'll work. Let's double check the work this time. Where we have three inputs: silicon, plastic, and wire. The silicon will be on one of these, wire and plastic on the other. They're both inserted, and then we need one inserter for the output. And that would work. And just out of curiosity, let's compare this to what we had before and see how much more compact it is. I imagine quite a bit, because the other way was a little janky. But you learn to do things better whenever you do things not better. But let's see, that other setup kind of started right here. And even more when you consider the power poles on the side. So we made this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares more compact, at least from a width concern. Well, let's see how tall it would be, because we can make it even narrower if these components can be down here instead of on the side. That would make it even better. Well, we need 43, and this is 24. So this gives us our 48. It wouldn't need these last two. So that should be the whole thing. 44. And what does that look like? Well, it's smaller than that, which means it easily fits. So I don't know how this would relate to the other one, making the transistors, because we'd also need a bunch of machines. This one would require at least another set of these, so it would make it 50% bigger. And I'm not sure that 50% would fit. Doesn't look like it, so we probably will have to do them separate for each other, but we could have the similar machines in the middle, so we could have like the silicon machines all down the middle supplying resources, so we still could make it as a combined set here. Well, the wire could be made down here at the bottom fairly easily. Silicon does kind of make a little bit of sense to put in the middle, but I guess we do have extra space where we could just place it here anyway. There's really no issue there. So how would we do that? Well, let's make this one the wires in plastic. So we need 2 rubber machines, which I guess we can put on the outside, and then one in the middle doing the tin, and then they can feed into each other. And just to keep everything symmetrical, we'll keep them lined up here, where the tin machine will have an input, and I guess both of these rubber ones could as well. They can all just pull off of the same belt. That's rubber and tinned wire. And then they feed inside. And the final ones go out. And then this would also need to have plastic put on it. So it would be, I don't know, something like that. Then this one right here would have to be a tiny bit red for the silicon. And we would need 4 machines. So silicon bits can come in there, get inserted, and then the output, which looks like we should probably do red inserters. And I think that's everything. Let's make sure that it still fits. Oh yeah, looking great. That's what I like to see. So this would be next to this one. Its inputs would combine here, turn into red, and then go to wherever it needs to go. And now we need to do another one for the transistors. And our transistor is something we can copy. Yeah, kinda. In fact, we can just do a solid line of them, and it would work pretty well. So we probably don't even really need to copy that. So if we did a group of 2 of them, making the transistors. And how many do we have here? I want it to be approximately the same size. So if we made it 24 units high, it would be a little too tall. So you do probably want to make it 2-sided here. So it would be 2 belts of input, regular and long-handed. Then the output being a regular and a near. Gonna have to try to copy it a little bit here. Okay. Now we can start copying these a few times, but probably in such a way where there's no power overlap. Let's just remove the poles for now. Let's see, how many do we have? 40, far too many. So our 26 is right there, so we don't need any of them down here. And since we have room in the front, we might as well use it to put stuff. The idea is kind of the same. Let's try to keep these lined up if possible. So if we put these on the outside, These can make the silicon input through there and have the output side be there. Yeah, but I guess it wouldn't really work. I'll space it out a little bit. So regular, near, and put a power pole in there. And the other side, we need a lonely machine. Right there. Making the wire. One yellow input, and then probably a red for the output. And then like before, we would need to inject the plastic in. But I think it would be something like this. And then this would go next door. Well, since we know that it does, we can probably just move it to where it would go. Probably something like this. And some potentially double poles here, but we probably have to have them there for everything to reach properly. So that would create our output. So we've got approximately 2 red belts of each of these. And they would go off to the side. That would be nearby as well. Suppose we should place it, if we can make it fit anyway. Let's get it lined up with all the other machines. We could mash it in there, but let's just give it a space just in case here. This would create the 10 module contacts necessary. Then they would come through like that. Let's do another check. I always want to keep checking that this is going to fit. Put it in there, and it does. Pretty close to not fitting. But we've got a few squares in there. It's good to know that we only have a few squares, so we don't want to make it too much bigger than that. Well, okay then. We've got contacts, we've got transistors, we've got integrated electronics. So now, it's the process of doing all of this. But we're going to do that on the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.